Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone here. Sawadee Krab. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Today is what's called our Pali Canon and English study group. I'll explain to you guys what that is after we do our meditation, because we start each class with meditation. What we do here is we help students to understand the teachings of the Buddha and the path to enlightenment. What enlightenment is it's a mental state that you can acquire in this life where your mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you no longer experience any discontent feelings. You will eliminate anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this is eliminated from the mind. Oftentimes people think that it's other people who are causing you to be angry. But what you can understand through the teachings of the Buddha in a way that you can independently verify is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And this is why you can actually eliminate them. And one of the things that you do is meditation. This is helping to train your mind to move it closer and closer to this enlightened mental state. But you wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment. You would need other things besides meditation. So that's why we teach various teachings here. So I'm going to guide you guys in a meditation session because that's part of the teachings of the Buddha, give you guys a chance to experience that. And then afterwards, we'll move into the Pali Canon and English study group, and I'll explain to you guys what that is, and we'll do that together. So if you'd like to join for the meditation, the way that I start this is with some chanting. This helps to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. You can see these chants over there on the laminated sheet on the cabinet. You're welcome to help yourself and get one. You can chant along with me if you like. Those of you guys that are online, you can actually get this chanting sheet by going to our website, buddhadailywisdom.com. You can click on free books and then scroll down towards the bottom and you'll see the daily chanting sheet. So the chanting that was being done during the lifetime of the Buddha, it was used as a learning tool that every 2 weeks his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. This is how he helped them to remember his teachings, because everything he taught was oral. They didn't have books and the ability to write things down. They didn't have, of course, YouTube and podcasts and things like this, Facebook. They didn't have the ability to learn through videos and audio and things like that the way that we do today. So he used chanting as a way to help his students commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. So from the origins of how chanting was used with the Buddha, you can see that there's no rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer here. That's not what this is. If you've been exposed to those kinds of things, the Buddha never taught those kinds of things. There aren't rites, rituals, ceremonies of worship, or prayer in the teachings of the Buddha. So when you're chanting this, it's purely to help your mind ease into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. If you read the English translations, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of this, I don't think the Buddha actually created these chants himself. They were probably created by his students, either during his life or after his death, because a Buddha wouldn't walk around and give out chants for people to chant to him, to show respect to him. Instead, I suspect that his students created these because if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger, sadness, and frustration to this peaceful and joyful mental state, and this teacher didn't want anything or expect anything from you, you'd probably have a lot of respect and gratitude for this person too. And that's where I suspect these chants actually come from. So I chant them on the way into meditation to be able to move the mind deeper into the meditation and ease it into the meditation. And we're going to chant it on the way out as well. Once we're in the meditation, you're going to hear me providing you some guidance. I'll be kind of instructing you and teaching you how to meditate while we're actually meditating together. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating at the same time. During this period of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. You might hear a car go by, a dog barking, a bird chirping, someone might cough or sneeze or something like this. This is completely normal. If you have a craving for permanent silence during meditation, when you hear a sound, you will cause your mind to be annoyed. That's your mind craving permanence when you live in an impermanent world. So if you understand the world around you is impermanent, and when you hear a sound, that sound is going to arise, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away. You can understand that that's normal. That's the way the world works. And you can just be at peace and joy knowing that this sound is not permanent. And you can just stay joyful and peaceful in your meditation. So during that period of time where it's quiet, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. That's completely normal. And all you need to do is just continue to meditate. No need to be frustrated or annoyed or anything like that. Then after the meditation, we're going to come out of that with some more chanting. And that's where I'll start today's class of the Pali Canon and English Study Group. In terms of your body position for meditation, the Buddha taught 4 positions, and you would learn these at different times in your journey to enlightenment because it's like creating a tool belt. You would need these different positions at different times. He taught the seated, lying, standing, and walking positions. So oftentimes students are learning in the seated position. So I'll give you guys a little bit of guidance on the seated position, just things for you to consider, kind of recommendations or thoughts for you to consider. Because there isn't just one way to meditate. You can have your body in any position that you like. Even if it's not something that I've taught, you're more than welcome to sit however you're comfortable. But if you're sitting on the floor in a chair, I'll just give you some guidance, some things to consider. That if you're on the floor, you might have a cushion or more under your rear. This will kind of soften your seat. And then if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might decide to do that just lightly. Because if your legs are real tight, this can impede the circulation and it can cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets the hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow so you're not experiencing pain in the lower body. In terms of your hands and your arms, the Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it. But again, it's not about everyone doing it the same way. There's other options here as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can find whatever's comfortable for you. And then the same thing for anybody in a chair, or maybe if you're at home, you're on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, you can also sit however you're comfortable. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed, so this is an option for you as well. And then your hands and arms can just go wherever you're comfortable. The upper body is helpful if this is erect. If the sternum is up and the shoulders are back, it'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you would like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. So having the sternum up and the shoulders back will help keep the mind attentive and alert. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind would be overactive or uptight. So you like the upper body to be in the middle with the sternum up and the shoulders back, because it'll help your mind to stay attentive and alert during the meditation, but it'll also make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to chant on the way into meditation. You guys are welcome to join in. And then afterwards, I'll come back in with the guidance to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Wat Tung Mahakewanhang Apiwateyami Sawakato Mahakewata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakewato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakewa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vichacharanang sammuno Sakato rokavitu Anutero purisa Dhamma sati satatawa manusrang Bhutto bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up to the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหะวาโพตังมหาเกวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหะเกวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสคาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตวามนุสนังโพโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone. Nice to see you all here this morning. Welcome to everyone joining online as well. As I was mentioning, today is our Pali Canon and English study group, which I'll explain to you guys what that is. But first, let me just share a few things, because I know many of you guys are maybe coming here for the very first time. The teachings of the Buddha are about learning, growing, developing, and cultivating your mind. You're developing wisdom about this path to enlightenment. The path to enlightenment is to purify your mind from certain pollutions that the Buddha discovered. He discovered these 10 individual pollutions that are in the unenlightened human mind. And when you understand what those pollutions are and you eliminate them out of the mind, this is where you experience the enlightened mental state. And this is happening gradually. It's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. Meditation is one of the things that you use in order to train your mind and move it to this peaceful and joyful mental state, but there's other things that you need as well. One of the first teachings that the Buddha shares with you is something called the Four Noble Truths. This is where in 4 simple statements, you can understand the problem in your mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. The Buddha explains that the problem is discontentedness, that the mind experiences conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, your mind will experience a feeling. So if it's sunny outside, you will be happy or excited perhaps. And then when it rains, you might be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. All that's happened here is change. That's all that's happened. And the world is full of change. And if your mind craves permanence, which each unenlightened mind does, when you experience that change, the mind won't like it and you'll experience these painful feelings. So another example, if you get really happy when your bank account balance is up here, when it goes down here, you'll be sad or frustrated. Again, all that's happened is change. It's not other people that's causing your mind to be angry or frustrated. It's your mind craving permanence, wanting things to be a certain way permanently. So if you've been in a relationship where you were together with a boyfriend or girlfriend, you might have been really happy or excited when that relationship first started. But then when you broke up, you might have been sad or angry or frustrated. You might have been lonely or bored, or you might have been missing this person. This wasn't your love or your care that was causing it. It was your mind craving permanence, wanting this relationship to be permanent, when in reality, everything around you is constantly changing. It is impermanent. So as long as the mind is having longing, yearning, and craving for permanence, this is the cause of all discontent feelings. Your mind is going to be happy and excited when it's getting what it wants, but then when you're not getting what you want, you'll be angry or frustrated or sad or some other painful feeling. So the Buddha shares teachings that helps you to transform all of this so that you can be peaceful and joyful and happy all the time. Instead of having conditional happiness, which is just temporary, that arises, changes, and fades away, you can get to permanent happiness, where the mind is just always happy. And this is called unconditional happiness, where there doesn't need to be any condition met in order for you to experience that happiness. Because in the unenlightened state, you'll have all these expectations, all these things you want. And if all these things are true, then you will be happy. So if my mom and dad does this, if my boss does this, if my bank account is this, if the weather is this, if I have this kind of house, if I have this kind of car, so forth and so on, then I will be happy. So the more of those expectations you have, the amount of happiness that you have shrinks. It becomes less and less because you're sabotaging your ability to be happy because you can't have all those expectations met. This is why some people are old and grumpy, right? You don't have to be old and grumpy, but as you age, if your mind accumulates all these expectations and all these wants, then you can only be happy when you're getting what you want. So the Buddha is teaching you how to pursue things as a goal, as an objective or an interest, rather than chasing and chasing and chasing and forming your inner feelings on whether you get this thing or not. Because when you're experiencing sadness or anger or frustration or some of these other painful feelings, you might be thinking, what can I get? What do I want that's going to make me happy? Oh, more money, or a new boyfriend or girlfriend, or maybe a chocolate ice cream, or any number of things. The mind might chase after these external things, trying to get its happiness. But that happiness, because it's based on an impermanent thing, that means your happiness is also impermanent. It's temporary. So as long as your mind keeps basing its inner feelings on some external thing, then you can't be permanently happy. So you need to be willing to let go of this temporary happiness in order to be able to get to the permanent happiness. That's what the Buddha is guiding you to be able to do. So the teachings of the Buddha aren't about a bunch of beliefs of things that you believe, and then you hope something good happens when you die. Instead, he's helping you to learn and understand and train your mind now in this life so that you can get to peace and joy in this life. So that's what the teachings of the Buddha are all about. And he teaches an entire path to enlightenment that helps you to be able to understand how to do that. And we have various courses and programs that are going to help you to understand that. So there's Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course. There's the group learning program that happens each Sunday and Wednesday. There's various programs and stuff like this. And usually where people start is in this first book. It's called Developing a Life Practice, the Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This is going to help you to gradually cultivate the wisdom to be able to get to enlightenment. And you're going to need other guidance besides this, but this is a good place to start. And you can get this for free. You can download it from our website. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost so we can use it to purchase other books, or you can get it on Amazon if you'd like. And that's the best place to really get started with that book and all of our programs and courses that are based in the foundational teachings. And those programs, the way I teach them is I will teach for 15, 20, 30 minutes, and then I will open up for questions. And then I will teach for another 15, 20, 30 minutes, and then I will open up for questions. So it's a more traditional style of learning, where this particular program, it's a study group where we study volumes 2 through 13 of this book series that I share. And we study the original words of the Buddha. And we do this in a different method. What I do is I invite students here or on Zoom to be able to volunteer to read a chapter. So we have a certain chapter here from our book. In this particular chapter, you can see it's not even one page. So someone would read this chapter, and then I would share some teachings on it, and then I'd open up to questions from students. And then we would move to the next chapter. And typically we start with like chapter 81, and then we would go to chapter 90. This is like 10 chapters a week is usually what we study. But because of where we are in this program. We're actually in volume 11, which is titled The Realms of Existence. And I know that the chapters prior to this are things that would be quite challenging for someone who's just starting out to be able to understand. In this particular audience here, there's different people here. There's people that have been studying with me for a fairly significant amount of time. There's people here that have been studying with me for kind of a medium amount of time. And then there's brand new people that you guys have never met me ever before. So I'd like to kind of strike a middle balance where everybody kind of gets something that they can benefit them. So that's why I'm going to start at chapter 84 today. This is a chapter that we can study, and then we can move on to the next one, which is going to help you guys to all get something beneficial out of today's class. So the way that I do this is, if you would like to volunteer to read, we have microphones here in the white bowl. If you could come get a microphone, just press the gray button. You'll see the lights shine up, and then you'll put that up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. And then if you could just keep these microphones with you, because you might have a question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can share the microphone. And if you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that'd be helpful so we don't get feedback. If you speak here without a microphone, the people online won't be able to hear you. And for anybody who's in Zoom, if you would like to volunteer to read, you can electronically raise your hand and then unmute your microphone, and then you can volunteer to read as well. And then anybody who would like to ask questions, if you're here at the temple, again, if you could use the microphones. And if you're in Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom, you can put your questions in the comment section. I'll be able to see that, and I'll answer your question. And then in Zoom, you can also raise your hand and ask questions that way too. So would anybody like to read this first chapter, and then we'll kind of go from there, helping you guys to understand some of the teachings of the Buddha? Yeah, please, go ahead, Steve. Might decide to take more than one, Steve. You might decide to take more than one. I don't know if there's battery issues or static or anything like that.
Chapter 84, the Supreme Honor and Respect. Ananda, prepare me a bed between these twin side trees with my head to the north. I am sleepy and would like to lie down. Ananda, these side trees have burst forth into an abundance of untimely blossoms which fell upon the Tathagata's body, sprinkling it and covering it in homage, respect. Divine coral tree flowers fell from the sky. Divine sandalwood powder fell from the sky, sprinkling and covering the Tathagata's body in homage, respect. Divine music and song sound from the sky in homage, respect to the Tathagata. Never before has the Tathagata been so honoured, respected, appreciated, admired, and adored. And yet, Ananda, whatever male or female ordained practitioner, male or female household practitioner resides practicing the teachings properly and perfectly fulfills the way of the teachings, he or she honours the Tathagata, has deep respect and appreciates him, and pays him with supreme homage, respect. Therefore, Ananda, we will reside practicing the teachings properly and perfectly fulfill the way of the teachings. This must be your goal and objective.
Okay, thank you, sir. So again, this isn't where somebody would normally start their journey on the path to enlightenment. This is volume 11, chapter 84, right? This is actually depicting and describing a miracle that had occurred during the lifetime of the Buddha. He didn't perform this miracle, but this is something that occurred. The original teachings of the Buddha are in 45 volumes of books that are this thick. And what you have here in this book series that I share is their extracts, collecting the most important teachings that you need to be able to make your way to enlightenment. And here in volume 11, chapter 84, we have this miracle that's being depicted and described about what was happening during the lifetime of the Buddha. This person, Ananda, is one of the Buddha's close students, that this individual actually was studying with him the entire time of his teaching career. He's thought to be maybe like a cousin or a brother-in-law or something like this that was part of the royal family. And he left the royal family to come basically learn from the Buddha. And he was with him from the very beginning of his teaching career. And he was with him all the way to the end in his actual death. So you'll see a lot of the discourses are referring to this person, Ananda. And he is thought to have had the deepest memory, that he was one of the people that was instrumental instrumental in documenting the teachings of the Buddha, because after the Buddha died, shortly thereafter, they convened a council of 500 enlightened beings to be able to start documenting the teachings of the Buddha. So Ananda is one who's really credited with having remembered so much because he had been with the Buddha for so long, for 45 years. So here the Buddha is asking his student, can you make this bed for me, right? He's going to sleep because the Buddha, he was a prince destined to become a king, but he stepped away from that and he went into this life of homelessness, and he would basically sleep at his students' houses. They would sometimes invite him in to be able to sleep there. Here you can see he's basically sleeping out in the woods next to these two trees, and his student is about to make him this bed between these two trees. And as that it was occurring, then there's this miracle, this blossoming of the trees burst out. There's the sprinkling of covering of different flowers and things from the sky, this powder. There's these songs that are coming from the sky, things like this. And the Buddha's talking about how this is to honor and respect and admire him, because people will typically have that to a certain degree. Some people, of course, about a Buddha. When there's a Buddha in existence, this individual has deep wisdom to be able to help others to get to enlightenment. And there's a certain number of people that are going to have deep respect. And the Buddha's explaining that this particular event was out of respect and honor for him. But then notice that he doesn't have this ego, right? He doesn't have this arrogance and this pride, like, look at me, look how great I am that this miracle has occurred. He immediately goes into a teaching and helping his student to understand a certain aspect of the path. He's saying here that any male or female ordained practitioners or male or female household practitioners who are practicing the teachings essentially very deeply, this is the way to show deep respect and appreciation to a Buddha. Because a Buddha has done a significant amount of hard work to be able to get to enlightenment by themselves. If you are on the path to enlightenment, you're going to need teachers and you're going to need guides to help you. And you're going to see how challenging that is to be able to get to enlightenment, even with teachers and guides. It's a certain amount of challenge. It's not easy, but it's not difficult either. It's just a real challenge. And that's even with teachers and guides. But a Buddha does this by themselves without the help of any teachers and any guides. They really persevere for themselves, but then also for the benefit of many others. So a Buddha's goal, once they get to enlightenment, is to share the teachings that it takes for countless people to be able to get to enlightenment, because they have deep amount of compassion for all beings. Compassion is concern for the misfortune of others. And a Buddha has deep amount of loving kindness for other beings, which is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. So knowing the struggles and difficulties that they went through in order to be able to get to enlightenment, they're trying to minimize that struggle for other people, to make it as easy as possible for other people to get to enlightenment. So a Buddha's goal, their objective, is for many, 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 many people to get to enlightenment during their lifetime and after their death. And everything that they're doing is working in that regard. So the Buddha is saying, okay, if somebody was really interested in respecting him, that it would be to learn and practice the teachings, because that's helping to bring the teachings into the world in a way that you and other people would be able to then be able to experience enlightenment. The way that a Buddha's teachings penetrate into the world is through the hearts and the minds of individuals. That as you learn and practice the teachings and you're practicing them closely, it's going to help you to develop the wisdom that it takes to get to this enlightened mental state. But then also you'll be able to help other people too, because your parents and your siblings or your children or your life partner, your neighbors, your coworkers, people like this are going to be struggling in their day-to-day life with all kinds of sadness and anger and frustration and jealousy and guilt and shame and fear and all these different feelings. And by the time you learn and train your mind in the teachings of the Buddha, you will know exactly what's causing those feelings, and you will know exactly how to eliminate them. And you'll be in a position to be able to help other people. So what the Buddha is saying is the best way to respect him, essentially, is to learn and practice his teachings. So the Buddha didn't teach all these rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer that you see typically going on. You go into a lot of these temples and, they're bowing to statues, they're feeding statues, they're praying to statues. None of that stuff is actually going to lead to enlightenment. It's training your mind that's going to lead to enlightenment. And that's what the Buddha is saying here, is that by learning and practicing his teachings, that's the deepest amount of respect. This miracle thing that's happening, so what? A Buddha doesn't care about that. That's not helping anybody get to enlightenment. That's just acknowledging like, hey, this person is a Buddha, right? That's not a care or concern to a Buddha. They don't go out into the world trying to convince other people that they are an actual Buddha. Instead, they're deeply focused on sharing teachings that are going to help people to transcend the sadness and anger and frustration, because they understand what it's like to be in those painful feelings, and they also understand what it's like to transcend that and get to the peace and joy that is enlightenment. And they're very interested in seeing countless people get to that same mental state where their mind can be peaceful and joyful and transcend all that anger and sadness and frustration. So it's interesting how you can see that there's no ego here in the mind of the Buddha, that right away with this amazing miracle that's happening, he goes right into a teaching and helping Ananda to be able to see a certain aspect of the teachings, is to be deeply committed and dedicated to learning and practicing and growing on the path. That's what's important to a Buddha. This miracle is not even important to them. So you guys have any questions on this chapter? Anything you would like to ask? Remember, if you could use the microphones here or online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Anything you guys would like to ask? Yeah, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Yeah, I like the way it sort of downplays the miracle. No big deal. Get back to doing your meditation and teaching and the like. Mm-hmm. But what's going on with the concept of a miracle? I mean, in terms of universal laws and like what's going on, like the miracles have been reported, throughout history, and even in some of the modern day YouTube gurus have miracles. Well, yeah. But what's your interpretation of the concept of a miracle?
Yeah,
in any case.
Sure. So if it's a true miracle like this, what's actually occurring is it's this supreme being that oftentimes people refer to as God that's performing that. And that being understands that this person is a Buddha. This person is here to help people to become more and more wholesome and be able to evolve as a human being. And this being God is interested in seeing more and more human beings to be able to get to this enlightened mental state, because more and more that would be like heaven on earth, having countless people to experience enlightenment. So this being God is the one who performs miracles. So even when you see depictions of like Jesus or, the Buddha performed a miracle where he touched the ground, it's not actually the human being who's doing it. It's God that's doing it and making it appear as if it is the human being, so that people can understand that that human being has this ability to lead people towards a better way of life. And then that helps people to understand to a certain degree. Someone like Jesus, he needed to perform lots of miracles because he was there for a very short period of time, and he needed to convince people that there was only one God. That was his objective, because up to that point, people believed in multiple gods. So God helped to, through Jesus, be able to see that there was multiple miracles that he was performing, so people would understand who this being was, and that when this being said, hey, by the way, everyone, there's just one God, then people would understand. The Buddha, he only ever performed one miracle, and that's usually what a Buddha will do. They will perform one miracle. They will do it for a small group of people that basically are instrumental in helping them to bring their teachings into the world, and that's it. They won't perform any more miracles because a Buddha's teachings are independently verifiable. Where Jesus' teachings, he wasn't a Buddha yet, he wasn't fully enlightened, so he needed people to believe what he was doing, and he needed multiple miracles to convince people of what he was going to teach. But a Buddha, his teachings aren't based in belief, so that's why he only needed to perform one miracle, and that's what a Buddha will typically do. And again, even though I say a Buddha is performing the miracle, it's really God that's performing it. Or even though we say Jesus performed these miracles, it's really God, because that's the only being that has this level of ability to be able to perform these kinds of miracles. God's not going to give that ability to a human being to perform these types of things. And then if you see things on YouTube and stuff like this, oftentimes these are optical illusions. They're not necessarily miracles, right? A true individual who's performing a miracle, they're not going to set up a camera, they're not going to, start live streaming it to YouTube as they perform this miracle and stuff like that. That's typically, kind of an optical illusion or something like that. But that's how it happens, and that's why it happens, is to help people understand who this being is, and it's actually happening from God, making it appear that it's from this person, so that people will understand who that person is. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, checking to see if we have any other questions here. I don't see anything else. Okay, so now let's move into this next chapter. By the way, what you have in all these books is you have the words of the Buddha. These are English translations that are reliable, that will help you to be able to make your way to enlightenment. And they're all available at no cost, as I shared. And after the actual excerpts of the words of the Buddha, you have a reference that takes you back to the original Pali Canon, the 45 volumes of books that you can go back to the original and you can see where this came from. And then you have words from me that are helping you to be able to understand how to integrate this into your day-to-day life. And in this particular chapter, I didn't really put a whole lot because, of what the content is. But sometimes you'll see I have even multiple pages sometimes to be able to help you. So you've got those aspects in these books. The first book isn't written that way, but volumes 2 through 13 are structured this way. Volume 1 has a lot more of my words with the words of the Buddha to be able to show you that what I'm teaching you is actually from the Buddha. So now let's go into this chapter 85. Is there someone who would like to read this one? Rachel? The normal characters? One of the things that the unenlightened mind has is it has shyness, right? This is from the mind's personal existence view. It doesn't want to be perceived by others a certain way, so it's shy. But as you're training your mind more, you can be comfortable in a public setting and you won't feel shyness. And one of the ways to help you do that is to actually put your mind in the situation so that you can train your mind to overcome that shyness. Mm-hmm.
The path of the company of Brahma, the Brahma Viharas. What, student, is the path of the company of Brahma, God? Here a monk resides, cultivating 1/4 of the mind filled with loving kindness, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above, below, around, and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he resides, filling the all-encompassing world with a mind filled with loving kindness, tremendous, distinguished, measureless, without hostility and without ill will. When the liberation of mind by loving kindness is developed in this way, no limiting action remains there, none persists there. Just as the vigorous trumpeter could make himself heard without difficulty in the 4 quarters, so too, when the liberation of mind by loving kindness is developed in this way, no limiting action remains there, none persists there. This is the path to the company of Brahma. A monk resides, cultivating 1/4 with a mind filled with compassion, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above, below, around, and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he resides, filling the all-encompassing world with a mind filled with compassion, tremendous, distinguished, measureless, without hostility, and without ill will. When the liberation of mind by compassion is developed in this way, no limiting action remains there, none persists there. Just as a vigorous trumpeter could make himself heard without difficulty in the 4 quarters, so too, when the liberation of mind by compassion is developed in this way, no limiting action remains there, none persists there. This is the path to the company of Brahma. A monk resides, cultivating 1/4 with a mind filled with sympathetic joy, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above, below, around, and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he resides, filling the all-encompassing with a mind filled with sympathetic joy, tremendous, distinguished, measureless, without hostility, and without ill will. When the liberation of mind by sympathetic joy is developed in this way, no limiting action remains there, none persists there. Just as a vigorous trumpeter would make himself heard without difficulty in the 4 quarters, so too, when the liberation of mind by sympathetic joy is developed in this way, No limiting action remains there. None persists there. Again, a monk resides cultivating one quarter with a mind filled with equanimity. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above, below, around, and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he resides filling the all-encompassing world with a mind filled with equanimity, tremendous, distinguished, measureless, without hostility and without ill will. When the liberation of mind by equanimity is developed in this way, no limiting action remains there, none persists there. Just as a vigorous trumpeter could make himself heard without difficulty in the four quarters, so too, when the liberation of mind by equanimity is developed in this way, no limiting action remains there, none persists there. This too is the path to the company of Brahma.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. So here, the Buddha is talking about what's called the Brahma Viharas. During the lifetime of the Buddha, there were individuals called Brahmin that existed in that region of the world. The Buddha was born in what we refer to as Nepal, but that line wasn't there between Nepal and India. It was just different kingdoms. But he was born in what we refer to as Nepal, and he taught in northeast India. And in this region of the world, there were individuals that were born into a certain class of people that were considered to be holy if you were born into this class of people. And they were responsible for doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, prayer for everybody else. And people would go to these people and they would pay them money, and then they would do a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer on your behalf. And your life was supposed to get better. Well, the Buddha knew that this wasn't actually true. This isn't the way that the world works, that in order to be able to get to an improvement in your life, you need to cultivate wisdom and you need to make better decisions. And that's what his teaching centered on. But this was very pervasive in that world, that part of the world, that people were going to these Brahmin. We might call these people Hindu priests nowadays, where they were doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. And the Buddha understood that this wasn't true. But there were certain things that they were doing within that Brahmin tradition that the Buddha knew was part of the path to enlightenment. And one of the things that they had is something called the Brahma Viharas. The word Brahma means God. The word Vihara means dwelling or residing with. So these Brahmin, they would teach what's called the Brahma Viharas, which are 4 mental states that you cultivate, and they were teaching it as a way to dwell closer to God or to be closer with God. The Buddha's teachings don't center on that. He's not teaching you to dwell with God. He does teach about God. This is a big misunderstanding about the teachings of the Buddha. Many people in the world think the Buddha never taught about God. Some people even go as far as saying the Buddha rejected God or he denied the existence of God. And this isn't true. This is just coming from someone who hasn't actually studied his original teachings. If you look at his original teachings, he taught about this being God, but he just didn't make this being the center of his teachings. He's not the focal point of his teachings because it's not God who determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. It's your decisions that determine whether you get to enlightenment or not. So the Buddha put you at the center of his teachings because it's you that needs to learn and grow and train your mind. So nonetheless, these Brahma Viharas were being taught loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And people were teaching them in the Brahmin tradition to get closer to this being of God. And they were teaching that the more you practice these aspects of your life, that you would then become closer and closer with God. And while that may be true, with the way the Buddha was teaching it is that when you practice these qualities of mind, it's helping you eliminate certain pollutions of your mind and get closer and closer to this enlightened mental state, which is what you can see is actually true. So loving kindness is a wholesome quality that is the genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. It's active goodwill towards other beings without judging them. You're not interested in judging to determine whether someone deserves your love and your kindness. Instead, you would like to be loving and kind with all beings. This is going to actually antidote any anger, hatred, and ill will in your mind, and any lesser versions like frustration, agitation, annoyance, even dislike. Right now, you might have certain people you like and certain people you dislike. Well, this is actually coming from your own mind, and you can transform this. When people do things the way you want, the way you expect them to do things, you'll like them. But when people aren't meeting your expectations, you'll dislike them. This is the mind craving permanence, wanting everybody to be a certain way. And if they meet that mold, then your mind will say, oh, I like this person. But if they don't meet that mold and they do things differently than the way you expect, this is where you'll dislike them. And you might be angry or frustrated or agitated towards them. And this is coming from your own mind. So the more you cultivate loving kindness in your mind, and the Buddha has meditation that will help you to be able to do that. And then the more you go out into the world and you practice being loving and kind with everybody around you, it will transform your mind away from anger, hatred, ill will, frustration, agitation, annoyance, bitterness, harshness, hostility. Even the slightest dislike towards other beings will be eliminated from your mind. This is what an enlightened being is experiencing. They don't dislike anybody. They don't have any bitterness or harshness or hostility towards anyone. Again, the unenlightened mind will firmly believe that your harshness and your hostility is coming from other people, when you need to be able to see more and more clearly that it's coming from your own mind, and there's actually a solution for this. There's a way to fix this, and that's what the teachings of the Buddha are helping you to be able to do. In implementing loving kindness meditation and practicing loving kindness in your day-to-day life is one aspect that is going to help you to be able to do that. Then the next one is called compassion. Again, it's a Brahma Vihara, but the way that you can think about these is healthy mental states. The next one is called compassion. Compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others, where on one side of this, you'll be indifferent and an individual could care less what's happening to other people. You might see someone who's maybe homeless or addicted to drugs or alcohol, or maybe they're in poverty, and someone might just be indifferent and could care less and be like, so what? I don't care. It's not my family. It's not my friends. What do I care? Right? This is on one side of your compassion. And that's not compassion, but that's what the mind will do in the unenlightened state, is it'll have indifference towards other people's misfortunes. But then on the other side of that, the mind will have worry and anxiety with every little thing that you see. Like a child doesn't have food and you'll worry about that. Or you'll see a dog or a cat who's struggling in the world and maybe injured, and you'll be really worried and sad about that. So these are two opposite sides of the spectrum. The middle way here is to practice compassion, where you have a mental state where you have concern for the misfortune of these beings. Whether you choose to do something about it is a whole different question. That's a whole nother aspect of your practice that you might need to develop. But in order to be able to get to the point where you're loving and kind, where you can function with ease with your speech and your actions, you need to have this mental state of compassion, where you have concern for the misfortune of others, where you're not indifferent, where you could care less, but you're also not worried and having anxiety either. And again, this is a mental state. This isn't talking about action here. This is just a mental state that you acquire and you cultivate and then you practice in your day-to-day life, because that's going to get rid of your indifference, and it's going to get rid of your worry and anxiety that when you go around and you worry about what other people are experiencing. Then the next one is called sympathetic joy. Sympathetic joy is joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. So this is the opposite of like jealousy or envy. If you had jealousy or envy, there's a certain craving in your mind. You want something that you don't have, and somebody else has it, and now you're jealous or you're envious of that. So if somebody maybe was going to go to Thailand, and one of your friends were like, hey, I'm going to go visit Thailand. You're like, oh, that's wonderful. I've been to Thailand. That's a great place. They have wonderful massages. The food's really good. You know, you might go on and on and on about all the different things that you enjoyed about it. And you might have sympathetic joy in that situation, which is joy for their success, even though you didn't contribute to it. But maybe in other situations, you don't have joy for people's success. Maybe you're jealous or envious. Maybe in your job, there's a certain new position that's opened up, and you apply for this new position because it's more money, a nicer title, a better office, better responsibilities. But maybe some of your coworkers applied for that same job and they get the job instead of you. Maybe you're jealous. Maybe you're envious. This is because your sympathetic joy hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. That's why the Buddha here is talking about developing the mind a quarter with sympathetic joy, a second, third, and fourth. And he's doing this with each of the Brahma Viharas because you need to fully develop this where the mind is permeating with each one of these healthy mental states. If you just have a quarter of sympathetic joy in your mind, you'll be happy when someone goes to Thailand because you've already done it, right? And it's like, you'll have a great time, enjoy yourself. You'll have joy for their success, even though you didn't contribute to it. But when it's something like a new job, a new promotion, something that you want that you don't have, now you'll be jealous because you don't have the full development of sympathetic joy in your mind. So by developing sympathetic joy and rising that up and bubbling it in your mind, you'll get rid of all your jealousy and envy. And one of the things the Buddha teaches that's really helpful here with this is he says, anytime you see somebody experiencing something fortunate, he says, you've already experienced that, either in this life or some previous life, because we've all had so many countless lives, right? So if you see somebody who's rich and famous and your mind really wants that, the Buddha is saying you've already had that in either this life or some previous life. So that can kind of let your mind get rid of its craving where you don't long and yearn and have this jealousy or envy for something else, right? So this is sympathetic joy. It's the joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. So where you see your mind jealous and envious, that's your mindfulness. Use what's called right effort. Apply the effort to bubble up this sympathetic joy in the mind. And you can do this with loving kindness and compassion too, where you see your mind angry and frustrated and agitated and bitter and harsh. Bubble up the loving kindness, a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. Where you see your mind indifferent or you see it worried or anxiety, bubble up the compassion. Apply effort to bring that into your mind and fully permeate your mind with this compassion. And then the fourth one is what's called equanimity. What equanimity is calmness and composure, evenness of temper, especially in a difficult situation. So you would like to have calmness and composure in all situations. When your mind is shaken up, it's unsteady, it's unstable, you can't make wise decisions there. And then you're going to make unwise decisions, and those unwise decisions are going to lead to unwholesome results or unwholesome karma. That's what the word karma or gamma means. It's the results of your decisions. And when your mind's shaken up, when it's unstable and it's unsteady, you're going to tend to make unwise decisions, and it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. So by maintaining your calmness and composure, especially in difficult situations, you can then make wise decisions that's going to produce wholesome results. Because when your mind is calm, you will have mindfulness or awareness of mind. When you have awareness of mind or mindfulness, you will have concentration or focus. And when you have concentration or focus, then you'll be able to access your wisdom and actually make wise decisions. And now it'll produce wholesome results for you. But when your mind's all shaken up, your mind's uncalm, you don't have mindfulness or awareness of mind, you don't have focus and concentration, and you can't access your wisdom, and you're going to make unwise decisions, and it produces unwholesome results. So if you got a phone call that your mom has been in a terrible car accident, and she's in the back of an ambulance being rushed to the hospital, if you have a craving, a desire, attachment for your mom to be permanently healthy, which is impossible, your mom can't be permanently healthy, because her body is impermanent. But if you crave for her to be permanently healthy, when you hear she's in the back of an ambulance being rushed to the hospital, your mind will be all shaken up in that situation. And now you might grab your car keys and jump in your car and race across town. And now you might get in a car accident yourself. Or at the very least, you're going to show up to the hospital and your mind's going to be all shaken up. And now the doctors and nurses are trying to talk to you and explain what's going on so you can make some decisions to help her. But you can't help her because your mind's all shaken up. So what the Buddha is teaching you is to have equanimity, calmness and composure, especially in difficult situations. You get that phone call that your mom's been in a terrible car accident and she's in the back of an ambulance being rushed to the hospital. You can maintain your calmness and composure. Understand that mom is in the best place that she could be, which is in the back of an ambulance with the emergency medical technicians. And she's going to be arriving to a hospital shortly where there's sophisticated medical equipment and doctors and nurses that can take care of her. The last thing you're interested in doing is racing across town. Just take your time, make your way to the hospital. If you get there with 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 30 minutes. It doesn't matter. She's in the hands. You can't do anything at that point. She's in the best hands she could be in. So now when you show up and you're nice and calm and composed, you can listen to what the doctors are sharing, what the nurses are sharing, and now you can process that information with your calm mind, and now you can start making decisions to help mom. Right? So that's why the Buddha is teaching you equanimity, to have this calmness and composure so that in any given situation that you're in, you can make wise decisions. Say you're driving down the street, you have a flat tire on your car. You would like to be calm, right? If you get out and your mind's all shaken up, maybe you don't operate the jack properly. Maybe you jump out in the middle of traffic and get hit by a car. This is just going to produce unwholesome results for you. So you would like to maintain your calmness and composure in all situations. But you'll find that challenging to do when you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind. And that's why there's a core central path that the Buddha taught that's helping you to readily eliminate your craving, desire, attachment, your longing, your yearning. So this is what equanimity is this calmness and composure, this evenness of temper, especially in difficult situations. But there's another side to equanimity. The root word here of equanimity is equal. So the other part of equanimity is to treat everybody equally. You would like to treat everyone equally in your life. If you treat some people some way and other people another way, you're going to find that people will get jealous. They're causing their own jealousy, but they're going to take it out on you. So one of the things that Buddha is teaching you is how for you to get to peace and joy within your own mind, but he's also teaching you how to navigate the world of unenlightened beings. And if you treat some people some way and other people other ways, they're going to get jealous and they're going to attribute that painful feeling of jealousy to you. And then they're going to push you away, or they're going to be bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, or they're going to start putting their expectations on you and try to control you. Because this is what the unenlightened mind does when it doesn't understand that it's causing its own painful feelings. This is what you might be doing in some situations, is pushing people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile, or putting your expectations on people. So if you treat people unequally and they're getting jealous and they have those painful feelings, they're going to think you're causing it because they don't have the wisdom to understand otherwise. And now they're going to push you away. You're going to lose a friend or family member. They're going to be bitter, harsh, and hostile. And you're going to have to deal with that. Or they're going to start trying to control you and pressure you and put their expectations on you. So by you treating everyone equally, you'll have less and less of that experience in your life. So for example, if you were going to go to work and you were going to, take one of your friends some donuts for the morning, you would like to take enough for everybody. Right? Like if you have 8 coworkers in your office, take enough for everybody. And now everybody gets a donut, right? Instead of just your friend that you really work close with, right? Or if you're going to just get your friend a donut, go do it privately. You guys go out to the donut store by yourself. You don't have to necessarily give everybody a donut every single time, right? So whenever you're treating people a certain way, you'd like to treat them all fairly. Say you have multiple children. 2 or 3 or 4 different children. You'd like to treat them all the same and equally. Or say you have certain neighbors, right? And say you're throwing a party at your house. You would like to make sure you invite everybody. Not everybody's going to come, right? Because that's impermanence, but at least everybody gets an invitation. And now nobody feels left out. Because if they feel left out and they're jealous and envious, now again, they're going to attribute that to you, and you're going to have to deal with them pushing you away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile, or putting their expectations on you. So the other aspect of equanimity is to treat everybody equally and fairly. And this is going to help you to navigate the world more peacefully, where you don't have to deal with these things coming from other people. Okay, so these are called the Brahma Viharas, but a better way to think of these is the 4 healthy mental states. There are 4 healthy mental states that are going to help you eliminate certain aspects of your mind, like the anger, hatred, ill will, the bitterness, the harshness, the hostility, the indifference, the worry and anxiety, the jealousy and envy, this shaken up mind, this unstable and unsteady mind, and having to deal with other people's jealousy. So that's what these 4 Brahma Viharas are going to help you to accomplish. And keep in mind that the way the teachings of the Buddha work is it's gradual training, gradual practice and gradual progress. So you shouldn't put the expectation on yourself that just because you maybe heard this and maybe you're starting to intellectually understand it, that you're going to snap your fingers and instantly be able to implement this kind of thing. You're going to need gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. And that's why the core central teaching of the Buddha is the Eightfold Path. And that's the best place to start. And something like this plugs into the Eightfold Path. So now you understand the history of where this is coming from, how the Buddha incorporated it into his teachings, but he did it in a different way that helps you to cultivate these mental states that are going to be wholesome. And by cultivating these wholesome mental states, it'll eliminate certain unwholesome mental states from your mind. So any questions about this chapter? No questions here? Okay, let me see if we... Oh, you have a question? Yes, ma'am. If you could get a microphone, Steve's got one there for you. He's going to help you out.
This is the intellectual understanding of the concept, but then how do you train yourself to do this? Yeah,
this is where the Eightfold Path comes in. That's why I recommended people start with the first book, because chapter 4 and 5 of the very first book is going to help you to be able to understand how to implement this, because there's 8 individual factors that you need to learn and grow and understand, and that's where people usually start. That's where the Buddha would start his students, because this is volume 11, chapter 84. But even in this very first edition, this very first book, chapter 14 is about the Brahma Viharas, and it teaches you the things that I just shared. It teaches you those things. So you would first need to learn chapter 4 and 5. So that's where I suggest you start, because that's what's going to help you to be able to develop your mind to be able to implement this kind of thing. Yeah. And remember, you can get these on the website for free. You can take it and go print it. You can get them here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can get it on Amazon. And the first one is up on the top left corner. And we also have the first one over here as well. We have it in English and we have it in Spanish too. Even though I can't teach in Spanish, we have it translated in Spanish. Yeah, so great question. Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other questions anywhere. So let's see what this next one is. I don't quite remember. Again, here's the words for me that are helping you to be able to understand. Right here's me describing the 4 healthy mental states, and I'm explaining the unwholesome qualities that you're eliminating as part of implementing this. So these will help you. Okay. So maybe we'll end with this one. Is there someone who would like to read this one? You got it, Eamon?
The difference between the unstructured noble disciple and uninstructed worldling. Monks, there are these 4 kinds of persons found existing in the world. What for? 1. Here monks, distant from sense desires, distant from unwholesome mental states, enters and resides in the first jhana, which is with thinking and pondering, based in seclusion, filled with excitement and joy. He enjoys it, motivated towards it, and finds satisfaction in it. If he is firm in it, focused on it, often resides in it, and has not lost it when he dies, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings of Brahma's, God's company. The lifespan of the heavenly beings of Brahma's company is an eon, indescribable period of time. The worldling remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he goes to hell, to the animal realm, or to the realm of afflicted spirits. But the perfectly enlightened one's disciple remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he attains final nirvana, final enlightenment, in that very same state of existence. This is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and this is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the uninstructed worldling. That is, when there is future destination and rebirth. 2. Again, some person with the subsiding of thinking and pondering by gaining inner tranquility and oneness of mind. He enters and resides in the second jhana, which is without thinking and pondering, based in concentration, filled with excitement and joy. He enjoys it, motivated towards it, and finds satisfaction in it. He is firm in it, focused on it, often resides in it, and has not lost it when he dies. He is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings of streaming radiance. The lifespan of the heavenly beings of streaming radiance is 2 remains. He has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings. He goes to hell, to the animal realm, or to the realm of afflicted spirits. But the perfectly enlightened disciple his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he attains final nibbana, final enlightenment, in that very same state of existence.
Yeah, wise choice to come get a new one. Right up here.
This is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the uninstructed worldling. That is, when there is future destination and rebirth. 3. Again, some person with the fading away of excitement, remaining imperturbable, unable to be upset or excited, calm and serene, mindful and clearly aware, he experiences in himself the joy of which the noble ones say, "Peaceful is he who resides with equanimity and mindfulness." The third jhana, he enjoys it, motivated towards it, and finds satisfaction.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with all these mics.
It's me. Focused on it, often resides in it. He is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings of refulgent glory. The lifespan of the heavenly beings of refulgent glory is 4 eons. The worldling remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he goes to hell, to the animal realm, or to the realm of afflicted spirits. But the perfectly enlightened one's disciple remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he attains final nibbana, final enlightenment, in that very same state of existence. This is the distinction, the difference between the instructed disciple and the uninstructed worldling. That is, when there is future destination and rebirth. 4. Again, some person having given up pleasure and pain, the fading away of former gladness and sadness, he enters and resides in the 4th jhana, which is beyond pleasure and pain, and purified by equanimity and mindfulness. He enjoys it, motivated towards it, and finds satisfaction in it. If he is firm in it, focused on it, often resides in it, and has not lost it when he dies, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings of great fruit. The lifespan of heavenly beings is, can you hear me? Yeah, the lifespan of heavenly beings of great fruit is 500 eons. The worldling remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he goes to hell, to the animal realm, or to the realm of afflicted spirits. But the perfectly enlightened one's disciple remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he attains full nibbana in that very same state of existence. This is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the uninstructed worldling. That is, when there is future destination and rebirth. These monks are the 4 kinds of persons found existing in the world.
Okay, thank you, sir. So what the Buddha is doing here is he's describing someone who's in what's called the jhanas and what they experience after death. So the jhanas are 4 preliminary phases that the mind goes through before it gets to the first stage of enlightenment. In these jhanas, you're experiencing enhanced qualities of mind, and you'll know that your mind is in these jhanas because the Buddha describes what they are. You can learn what they are, and as you're training your mind to progress on the path to enlightenment, you'll be able to see that your mind is experiencing these enhanced qualities. It's kind of like the light bulb is flickering and giving you some indication of some of the qualities that you're experiencing as you make your way towards enlightenment. Some of these wholesome qualities start shining through more and more. It's kind of like if you had the sun and you had the clouds in front of that and you started peeling away the clouds, the rays of the sun are going to slowly start kind of shining through the clouds. It's the same kind of thing, is that you might think about, instead of your mind needs to attain enlightenment, you might think about it as your mind is already enlightened and you have these pollutions in the way. And when you get those pollutions out of the way, the qualities of enlightenment start shining through, just like the rays of the sun. So what the Buddha is describing in each one of these is he's describing the first, second, third, and fourth jhana. And now he's saying if somebody dies that has learned with him and they're in one of those jhanas and they're reborn into the heavenly world, that because of their development of their mind, they're actually going to get to enlightenment in that life. Whereas if somebody hasn't learned from the Buddha, they haven't trained their mind, and they're reborn into the heavenly world, then they're not going to be able to get to enlightenment because they don't have that wisdom. They're going to be reborn back into the lower realms of hell, animal, or afflicted spirits. Now, these 5 realms that the Buddha teaches, hell, animal, afflicted spirits, human realm, and heavenly realm, these are all independently verifiable. As you guys heard me share, there's no belief in the teachings of the Buddha. You're not believing a bunch of things, but right now you might not have the wisdom of how to independently verify these 5 realms, and that's okay. You don't need that right here from the beginning. But this particular discourse is actually in Volume 11 for a reason, because it deals with the cycle of rebirth. It deals with the 5 realms of existence. And that's something that someone will usually approach much later in their development on the path to enlightenment, to be able to independently verify the 5 realms of existence and the cycle of rebirth. So these jhanas, as I mentioned, are these enhanced qualities of mind. And you're going to experience those by putting together the Eightfold Path. That's the core central teaching. As you're dialing that in closer and closer in your life, you're going to start experiencing these enhanced qualities to your mind. And you'll know that your mind is experiencing these because it's very clear that your mind is in these particular jhanas. And these are qualities that you're experiencing at all times during your day. And now this is actually going to help you to be able to further train your mind. So I'll just give you one example, that when you get into the second jhana, you'll have what's called oneness of mind, or unification of the mind. Prior to the second jhana, you have a conscious mind and you have a subconscious mind. And both of these have pollutions. They have the 10 fetters. But the conscious mind is what you're aware of. The subconscious mind, you're not aware of that, but they're both polluted. The subconscious mind is actually even more polluted than the conscious mind. And if you've ever been somewhere where you've been like around friends and you've just kind of blurted something out and you were like, whoa, where did that come from? I don't think that way. That's not the way I think. That's coming from your subconscious mind. It got thrown up into your conscious mind and you just blurted it out. And you're like, whoa, that was like really racist. Why did I say that? Or that was sexist. Why did I say that? I don't think that way. That's your subconscious mind that you're not aware of. So by the time you get to the second jhana, you have full awareness of your mind. You have what's called unification of the mind, or this oneness of mind, where you just have one mind. There's no longer a subconscious mind. You have full awareness of your entire mind. And you would need that in order to be able to actually make your way to enlightenment, because you need to purify the whole mind. If you continue to have a subconscious mind, you wouldn't be able to purify it because you have no awareness of it. So by the time you get to the second jhana, you have full awareness of the entire mind. There's no such thing as a subconscious mind for someone who's in the second jhana. So you'll know that you have this full awareness of the mind, because as you get to that second jhana, there tends to be this deep insight, this introspection, where you see all this unwholesomeness in your mind. It's almost ground shaking. It's almost like there can even be some guilt and shame when you start seeing how dirty the mind really is. Some people refer to this as the third eye, or opening of the third eye, where you have this introspection and you're looking inward and you'll be able to understand things about your own mind that you didn't understand previously. So you will know that these kinds of things are happening, and there's more than just that. But down here in this second jhana, the Buddha is probably talking about it. Yeah, here it is right here. This oneness of mind. That's what the unification of the mind. That's one of the things that's happening in the second jhana, right? So these 5 realms of existence, they're not something that you need to run out and go independently verify today, but as you get going, maybe 2 years into your development on the path, that's a better time to really start looking at this closely. And that's why this is in volume 11. Do you guys have any questions on this chapter? Okay. You have a question? Yeah.
Okay, it's not maybe about this chapter. And I have a question that if we or please you to answer a question that is, who am I? So So how will you answer this question?
Yeah, this is a common question that people will ask. What the Buddha teaches you is that there is no I. There is no me. That's not to deny that there isn't a being in existence, because there is a being in existence. But what the mind's going to do is it's going to keep trying to grab onto something or cling to something as who you think you are, whether it's your self-image or your self-identity or certain choices or decisions that you make. It's going to try to cling to that and think that that's who you are. This is part of the pollution that the Buddha discovered in the mind. It's called personal existence view, where the mind will kind of cling to your self-image, the way you look, the way you appear. And now if you cling to that and think that that's who you are, when all that starts changing and you look different, you'll struggle and have difficulties. So for example, the personal existence view wants other people to perceive you in a certain way. So now when you spill something on your clothing, and like a spaghetti sauce or chocolate ice cream, you'll be embarrassed in a social situation because you're clinging to this body thinking that this is who you are. Or if you get a pimple or a mole or a wrinkle, or you get gray hair, or you start losing your hair, you might be shaken up in that situation and feel uncomfortable because you're not going to be perceived in the world the way you want to be perceived. And this is the mind clinging to a who am I with this physical body. But then there's a certain identity that the mind oftentimes will cling to based on your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, a job or occupation, like I am Chinese, or I am American, or I am a Brit, or I am an Aussie, or I am a German, or any of this I am. This is the mind trying to cling to something of who you think you are. Even I am a kind person, or I am a police officer, any of this I am. And as soon as you cling to that and think that that's who you are, when it all changes, you'll feel lost and confused in the world. So for example, if you cling to I am a boyfriend, I'm a girlfriend, I'm a husband, I'm a wife, when you guys are together, you'll feel, somewhat comfortable. But then when you guys break up and you're single, your mind doesn't identify that way. So it'll oftentimes want to hurry up and get right back into another relationship, thinking that this is going to solve the problem, when in reality, it's just the mind clinging to an identity of who it thinks it is. And it doesn't feel comfortable with I am single, because the mind identifies with I am a boyfriend, I'm a girlfriend, I'm a husband, or I'm a wife, and the mind feels like I need to hurry up and get back into a relationship so my identity can be intact. Or say you were a police officer and you identified with I am a police officer, and you thought that's who you are as a person. Well, as long as you're doing that job, you feel great. But when you get injured, when you retire, when you get fired, you'll feel like less of a person. You'll feel diminished because you've been clinging to this thing, thinking that this is who you are, but that thing is not permanent. So now when it changes, you'll feel lost and confused. And someone might come to a place like Thailand looking for their true self. Like, I just need to go find myself. I need to know who I am. Well, as long as you keep doing that, your mind is longing, yearning, and trying to crave and cling and grab onto something of who you think you are. So the Buddha teaches you what's called the universal truth of non-self, where you understand that there is no self, that any of this stuff you're trying to cling to, it's actually not you. It's not who you are as a person. There's the body, the physical body, and then there's the mind. And the combination of these two things, we refer to it as a person, or there's a human being. But anytime you try to cling to any part of this as who you are, when it changes, you'll be lost and confused. So I'll give you another example. Like sometimes people can even cling to their decisions, right? So maybe in the past, someone might have used drugs or alcohol, and now they might cling to the idea of I am an addict or I am an alcoholic. And oftentimes people are teaching you these things because they're helping you to be able to see to never go back to alcohol, never go back to drugs. But when the mind clings to this identity of who you think you are, I am an alcoholic, I am an addict, now you might start feeling guilty or shameful about that. Where in reality, all that's truly happened is there was decisions that were made in the past by this being to use drugs and alcohol. But those decisions don't define who I am today as a person. But if the mind clings to this as who you think you are, now you feel guilty and shameful. So in order to get to the complete peace and joy that the Buddha is teaching you with enlightenment, you need to let go of any clinging of who you think you are and not be longing, yearning, and searching for who am I. And this is part of the training on the path, is to shed any kind of idea of who you think you are and just be a wholesome person instead of holding on and clinging to any number of things for your identity. And this is part of the training that you would do, is shed all these things, not clinging to it as who you are. So like, for example, someone might say, I am a Buddhist teacher. No, that's not me. I perform the role of sharing the teachings of the Buddha. That's what I'm choosing to do as a choice. But the mind doesn't have to identify with I am a Buddhist teacher. Because now when somebody says something wonderful and pleasing and agreeable about Buddhist teachers, if your mind is clinging to this idea of I am a Buddhist teacher, you'll get really happy when they're talking in agreeable ways. But if someone says something degrading and disparaging, if you cling to the idea that I'm a Buddhist teacher, you'll be frustrated and agitated or annoyed. So it's a matter of performing the role without allowing the mind to adopt the identity of that's who you are. Or this body was born on a land called the USA or America. So I can understand that this body was born there, but the mind doesn't have to adopt the identity of I am American. So now when somebody says something agreeable, you can be completely peaceful and joyful. But when somebody says something disagreeable, degrading and disparaging about Americans, you can still be peaceful because they're not talking about me. Right? If you cling to this idea that I am American or I am Chinese, now when someone says something degrading and disparaging, you'll be frustrated and annoyed. So by shedding all of this, it'll help you get to peace and joy.
Okay, I think what you said is very inspiring and also give me a new idea. That is...
Hold on, I'm sorry. Did you say you're going to give me a new idea?
No. I have a new idea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, reminds me of a new idea.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that I sometimes, we can know that we are not something. We are not some character. So that maybe will give us new idea of who am I. So my new idea is that maybe we can change our language to the way to express. So we don't say I'm a Chinese. We don't say I'm American. We say my nationality. I have a nationality of Chinese. I have an age of 39. But we still can use I. So I is conscious. So we are there, but we are not like the different characters we will mention later. So we can say, my job, I have a job of a police officer. I have a blah, blah, blah. But we still have I that. So if we change our language, so our thinking style will change. So maybe our problem will be less.
Yeah, so what I just shared previously is the problem. I described personal existence view and the problem. What you're starting to talk about now is the solution and how to fix it, right? So in volume 1, chapter 16, I go through the details of the problem and the solution, because there's multiple proactive things that you can do to strip away this idea of who you think you are. And one of the things that I share in there is changing language and not associating with this word I. Right? Because as long as you keep saying, I am a police officer, or I am American, and your mind adopts that identity, and you keep saying that, then your mind's going to continue to cling to it. So one of the things that I share in there is a proactive way to train your mind is you're going to need to adjust your language in the way that you talk. But the challenge is that the English language is very limiting, because the English language wasn't created with the idea of realizing non-self and getting to the point where you strip this away. The difference is that the Thai language has been structured that way, because the Thai language was created about 300 to 500 years ago, the current Thai language that they speak. And Buddhism arrived here about 800 to 1200 years ago. So when they created the Thai language, they created it with the understanding of people needing to realize non-self. So when you speak in Thai, you don't say, I am hungry. You say, David is hungry. You speak in the third person. Or like when my son would come home from school, I wouldn't say, how was your day at school? I would say, how was Bailan's day at school? Right? So speaking in Thai, you can understand how to speak in the third person, not using this I am. And what you'll find is it'll tend to kind of move over to English too. So when I speak to my son in English, I actually structure my sentences sometimes the same way I would with Thai. I'll say, how was Bailan's day today? Right? I'll say that to him. So, this word I, though, in the English language, there are certain situations where you just have to say it. There's just no other way around it. People wouldn't be able to understand what you're saying otherwise, because that language isn't structured with the understanding of realizing non-self. But you can still learn how to say the word I, use that pronoun, but your mind fully understands that that's not what is truly happening. So, for example, I will introduce my son Bailan sometimes. I will say, this is my son Bailan. But my mind understands he's not mine. He doesn't belong to me. But there's really no other way to introduce him that would sound normal, right? Because the true reality is that this is the being that I contributed sperm to create over 13 years ago. And if I introduced him that way, it'd be like, whoa, what is going on with here? Like, this is strange. Like, why is he introducing his son that way? Right? So I need to say, this is my son, Bailan, right? Instead of, this is the being that I contributed sperm to create over 13 years ago, right? So this English language is somewhat unfitting to really fully describe true reality. So it's a matter of using the language in some cases, but your mind doesn't adopt that thinking. But then in about 95% of the situations, you can do what you're thinking about, which is disassociating with this word I and start changing your language. But that's not the only thing that you're going to need to do in order to realize non-self. There's more. And that's where you'd like to look at chapter 16, because chapter 16 is all about dissolving the ego and getting to the point where you've eliminated that, because what we're talking about is part of the ego. It's not the entire ego, but it's part of it. And there's certain practices, one of which you're describing, but there's others too that you're going to need to implement in order to dissolve the ego and get that out of the mind so you can experience more peace and more joy. Because as long as that ego is in the mind, you can't get to the peace and joy that the Buddha is describing as enlightenment. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think that's everything. Let me just see one more time if we have anything on Facebook or YouTube. I don't see anything there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just end class by thanking all of you guys for coming. Thank you for your interest to learn the teachings of the Buddha. As you guys would like to learn more, you're more than welcome to. Tomorrow I have a class at 9 a.m. where we're going to do meditation, but then I'm going to be teaching in a more traditional method. That's our group learning program. That's where a lot of people start out with the brand new students. We're going to be learning chapter 6 tomorrow. It's from the first book. It's titled The Middle Way, Walking the Middle Way. It's actually a very simple teaching. It's actually going to take me about 15 or 20 minutes to teach it to students, and then we're going to actually have a discussion. I'll be able to help you guys from there. So if you'd like to learn tomorrow, you're more than welcome to come here, and you'll see that it's kind of more fitting for someone who's just getting started. And then I have various courses and retreats throughout the month and throughout the year. You can see our bulletin board over there has them. You can see our website has the details about this, and you can always come and talk to me, and I can help you get plugged into the resources that you need to be able to get started on the path to enlightenment. So whatever you choose to do today, have a very wonderful, lovely rest of your day. Perhaps I'll see you guys in a future class. Be well and take care. Sawadee krap, sawadee krap, sawadee krap.
thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.